In November of 2019, while driving on a regional road I'd gone down many times, my mind did something it never had before. It was raining, and I was coming around a bend to a green-lit intersection. I was signaling into a turning lane. There was a tight line of cars on either side of me like two walls, and as I started to turn, the road vanished. Even the cars seemed to dissolve. There was nothing but an expanse extending away in every direction. I was suspended in the air above deep cavernous depths, and the storm clouds above had split. Light from above them lit the sky like fire, and a line of long shining threads came down and vanished into the abyss. It seemed to last much longer than it did, and by the time I had the sense to brake, I had made the turn, and was back on the road exactly as before. I only told 2 people about it. I described it as a vision of golden harp strings connecting heaven and hell. After that, I acted like it didn't happen.
High-level ones or the low
2020
ones?
feels like the end of a cycle. When I look around me, that seems to be what everyone is saying, even if they don't use those words. But it's been very difficult over the past year to pay attention to what's been going on out there. It just feels like I've had much stranger things going on personally.
I have 9 Morcella and 6 bitter.
I'm not going to talk about politics or world events at all.
I don't know where the Morcella comes
To be
from.
honest, at this point, I'm content to let everyone else watch the news for me. None of that stuff really interests me.
There you go.
What's been going on for me this year is a long series of strange happenings, which I can't explain. And I just can't ignore them or keep them to myself anymore. So I have to say what's happened. And whatever happens after that is going to have to happen too. I'm not asking anyone to believe a word of anything I say, or believe anything I believe. In fact, to the best of your ability, stay skeptical. Because if there's some easy explanation that I'm missing, I'd like to hear it. All I want with this work
that should be good
is for you to look at what I'm looking at
I typically only
and
do
see what
one
you
a
see.
day.
With that out of the way, let's begin.
Man, I need a...
When the year began, I had just moved back home
like
from a
a
city I'd been
daily
living in with an
invention
ex-girlfriend.
breakdown thing?
This relationship had ended on the 22nd of December, and by early January I'd moved everything back home. Things were going pretty well around that time. I regrouped quickly, reconnected with some old friends, and after a brief and tolerable depressive period, I seemed to be doing much better than I had in months. And then, about halfway through the month, without any obvious reason at all, I stopped sleeping. A period of horrific insomnia began. It was so bad that I remember almost nothing from the months between January and May. For the first 5 days, there was no sleep at all. For the first 5 weeks, 2 hours a night, 3 when I was lucky. I could barely function. I was basically in a stupor. The problem seemed to be that as soon as I laid down, my heart began racing. This was highly unusual, and there was no reason for this. I wasn't stressed about anything. Sometimes my heart rate would more than double. It started accelerating and wouldn't stop. It would get so frantic that I had to get out of bed, because as soon as I got out of bed, it would always go back to normal. This didn't end until the summertime, but by about mid-February, I could get about 4 or 5 hours in a night. But something wasn't right. This sleep was fragmented and dreamless. I woke up more than 4 times every night, sometimes as many as 10. The other thing, which I couldn't make any sense of, was what started happening at night. Something started talking. Now, this wasn't a hallucination. Schizophrenics usually insist that they hear voices. These voices are commonly described as male, usually reported to be hostile, forceful, repetitive, and interactive, meaning the sufferer can engage with them in conversation. What I began experiencing on those nights bore no resemblance to this. Instead, my own internal voice began talking at me. During these episodes, I could see blackness, I could feel the bed, I could tell if the room was warm or cool, but I didn't seem to be self-aware. I was awake, but I didn't seem to notice I was awake. almost as if under hypnosis. Then, my inner voice would begin speaking. It went on long explanatory rambles as if it were being asked questions, seemingly having half of a conversation with itself. And it didn't seem to be me doing it. I just observed it. I scoured insomnia forums looking for experiences like this, but I couldn't find any. Now, I don't know what was going on, especially because these experiences were very hard to recall. But consistently, upon waking up, I felt these thoughts were not mine. It was like my inner voice was a sound system, and during the day, I was the one using it. And then at night, it started tuning in to something else. Now, as for what this thing said, I could never really remember. Usually all I recalled was that it did speak, and maybe a few other fragmentary details. What I usually felt was that the voice had been telling me something. I tried to ignore how weird this was, and just treated it like an obstacle. I just wanted to sleep, and this thing would go on, sometimes for more than an hour. Then I would wake up, wired, but stupid, because I'd had nothing but 4 bad hours of broken sleep. Between June and when it started, I never slept more than 5 hours. I became delirious and desperate, and even though it didn't go on that long, I became paranoid that my brain was being damaged and that I was going to die. Probably an overreaction, but I was far past the point of thinking clearly. I started working with a sleep therapist. I told her my brain felt broken, like things that used to move just didn't anymore. I've often wondered if the insomnia caused these effects, the brain feelings, the paranoia, the talking, or if the insomnia was just the most obvious symptom of something else. There's no way to know at this point. I was sleeping by June. As far as I can tell looking through old records, things didn't start ramping up until late July. Sometime before then I managed to get my hands on some psilocybin mushrooms. It had been about 1.5 years since I'd taken any psychedelics, and for some reason I felt I was in some kind of knot they might help me untie. What I did was insane. I would not advise it at all, and I don't know what convinced me to do it. The day before my birthday, I consumed somewhere between 8 and 10 grams of dried mushrooms. Then I sat down, blindfolded, and waited for whoever I'd just invited into my head to show up. It really began with the sounds. They were very odd and very clear and very hard to describe. The report I left described them as sounding structured and intentional, as if it were a language. And as it continued, I felt something coming closer. She seemed to form out of the patterns, slowly separating and taking shape. She wasn't human-like. She wasn't like anything. She moved gracefully and didn't speak. My intuition during this was that I wasn't seeing her, that this intelligence was using mental imagery and sensations to communicate. These communications intensified, gaining in speed and complexity, and as they went on, they began to feel more and more intelligible to me. My heart started racing, and then the next thing I recall is snapping to attention with a gasp and pulling off the blindfold. 2 hours were gone. I have no recollection of whatever passed during that time. I got up and left the couch and made my way to my bedroom. It was pitch black because the blinds were drawn, and I felt that someone else was inside, lying on the bed. I asked if anyone was there, but no answer came back. Just cold quiet and dread. When I went over to check, there was nobody. Just the covers all piled up on one side. I didn't seem to understand that it wasn't possible to sleep, so I tried to. This was a mistake. Something got its hands on me. It dragged me right out of my body into a pit of filth and agony. I seemed to vanish into it. The room was gone, and there was no way out. I couldn't get him off of me, and he dragged me further and further down to the bottom of evil, and he made me look at it. It was trying to show me something. It was trying to show me what was growing under the floor and in the walls of the world. The thing trying to wriggle up out of the earth and into our skins so that it could live and breathe. A thing made of hunger, that wanted to make pain, because it liked the way it tasted. And the thing that took me there said, "He wants to eat you all." When it finally ended, I left the bedroom. I felt shaken, terrified, and violated, but I understood why I had to see what I saw. I was disoriented, but I began to remember who and where I was, and what was going on. I felt something calling me to return to the couch and put the blindfold back on. So I did. When I closed my eyes, it felt like I'd just awoken from a dream. I was suspended in space, but I was also inside of a gigantic structure, because one had been built all through the solar system. It's a hard thing to remember, and a harder thing to describe, but it seemed to be a machine of some kind. Not any kind of machine humans have imagined before. This thing was as alive as anything. It was like a vast, breathing temple, and I could feel that it was alive, and that it was glad to be alive, and that it was deeply wise. I was outside of it, and I could only see its walls and its shape. It was a whole landscape. It reached away farther than I could see. I really can't put into words how big this thing was. And something in me said, on the other side of those walls, the universe is awake, and it's finished, and it was worth it. There was an altar at the center with the sun on it, and around that were fish-shaped objects nearly as big as it was. They were circling together in concentric rings as if in some sort of grand celestial ritual. It was as real as anything I've ever seen. I floated through this solar temple, and as I went I drifted closer and closer inward toward the sun. My eyes adjusted and I saw a gigantic being within it. It was framed and enveloped by the fire, but I could see its form clearly as though the sun were only a window. There in the center was something called the Star of Glory. It was made of feathered wings fashioned from bright gold, all extending from a point of blinding light. There were no discernible features other than these. It was just light and 6 wings. I felt that this had been the thing calling, that it had always been calling, that it was the very thing at the end of time calling the present to the future. And then it spoke.
"Let die he who would die. He who would live shall live against all odds."
As soon as it spoke, I was thrown out into space. The vision faded into blackness, and I could not call it back. I went to the mirror and I saw my pupils' weakness. As soon as it was the very thing at the end of time calling the present to the future. And then it spoke.
"Let die he who would die. He who would live shall live against all odds."
The future. And then it spoke.
"Let die he who would die. He who would live shall live against all odds."
As soon as it spoke, I was thrown out into space. The vision faded into blackness, and I could not call it back. I went to the mirror and I saw my pupils were normal. it was over. Now, this experience really made an impact on me. I wrote what the star said right away, and then recorded the whole thing. I'd never heard of anything quite like it. I'd heard plenty of DMT stories where people spoke with things, but very rarely had I heard of people coming back with the things those things said. Usually the whole thing seemed to dissolve. And when they didn't sound like this. The most noticeable thing about the star had been its shape. 6 wings, no body, no face. In the report I called it the angel. Something about it felt really real, so I looked up 6-winged angels. As it happens, accounts of such things do exist. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. Isaiah 6:2. I'd actually seen depictions of seraphim when I was a kid, but they looked like this, and I didn't know what they were called. What I saw didn't look like this. It looked somewhere between this and this. The seraph which I saw sounds to me more like what Isaiah described. What struck me most of all, though, was not this consistency. It was the Hebrew meaning of the word seraph. It means the burning one. At that time, and for a while before, I'd been studying Gnosticism, a dead form of ancient Christianity. Despite my best efforts, church Christianity had kind of spat me out, but there was something in it I didn't want to lose. My interest drew me to Abraxas, the god of Basilides, and out of this fascination would come something alien. Abraxas is a rather strange image. 2 snakes for feet, the body of a soldier, and the head of a rooster. I never really liked this image, not until after the vision of the angel. But then, something shifted, and I became obsessed with the thing. The name, in Greek isophony, adds up to 365, the number of days in the year. The number of letters is 7, the number of days in the week. So there's a deliberate connection to cycles of time, specifically, to my eye, with the ending and beginning of cycles. These are the Abraxas gems. He must have been important to the Gnostics because there's a lot of them. And I found all of a sudden I had to know what it meant, because it was one of the weirdest things I'd ever seen, and it didn't seem like it could mean anything, and yet I couldn't stop thinking about it. The psychologist Carl Jung, who had interests similar to mine, wrote of Abraxas, "This is a god whom ye know not, for mankind forgot it. We name it by its name Abraxas. It is more indefinite still than God and devil. Abraxas standeth above the sun and above the devil. It is force, duration, change." Doesn't really answer many questions, does it? It didn't for me either. The egg did crack eventually, though, and on the 5th of August I posted my conclusions on the Gnostic subreddit in the thread titled Symbolic Analysis of Abraxas. To summarize my interpretation, the 2 snakes symbolize chaos, conflict, and the animal instinct. This is nature, and symbolically, legs and feet always represent connection to the earth. The armor represents civilization, order, and the conquering side of the human spirit. It holds a whip representing force, and a shield representing mercy. The rooster's head symbolizes the morning, meaning creation, illumination, and wisdom. On the whole, it represents balance, chaos under order, and order under wisdom. The reason it was so opaque and hard to grasp was because it was trying to contain all opposites. Inexplicably, after I figured this out, I started making something. I was like a spider spinning a web. I didn't know what I was doing or why I started doing it. And when I began this, I opened a doorway, and something came in. In the language of symbolism, a cosmogram is a symbolic image representing all of reality. This is what I started working on. My first outline looked like this. I deleted the original, but this is very close. However, as soon as I started the project, something extremely strange began happening. The sleep problems came back, and the talking voice came back with them. We were still pretty locked down then, so I had nothing but time. For a week, I did almost nothing except work on the cosmogram. I would barely eat, I would in fact forget to eat, and usually did all my eating at the end of the day. The rest of the time, I worked frantically. I was back to 5 hours of dreamless sleep, and at night, the inner voice started talking on its own again. It would explain the symbolism, how it all connected, make corrections, and give instructions on what to do next. When I woke up, all of this was forgotten, but when I went back each day, new ideas seemed to fill my head as soon as I sat down. I couldn't recall what the voice had said, but I did seem to know. I'm not an artist, so I gathered free images from around the web and made the image out of them. At the end of a week, it was basically done. The sleep problems went away again. Over the course of a few more weeks, it was all I dreamed about. In those dreams, I would meet characters who suggested final alterations. And at the end of it all, the Abraxian cosmogram was finished. After making the image, I felt that something in me had changed, and that I'd found a kind of master key. It's a cross, the cycles of the year, a zodiac wheel, and the 4 suits of the tarot. But I noticed something a bit disconcerting. Over the course of a few days, I found more symbolism, which I hadn't put there. The pentagram is a very old symbol. It goes back to Pythagoras, and it represents a human being. It even has some history in Christianity. It's only a satanic symbol when you invert it. Otherwise, they wouldn't do that. There's an almost perfect pentagram here, and I didn't find it until it was already there. That probably seems a bit inconsequential. But there's more, and they start to add up. In Eastern Christianity, the skull of Adam has traditionally been depicted under the cross. I did not know this when I put a skull here. The Kabbalah's tree of life is divided into 3 pillars: the pillar of severity, the pillar of mercy, and the pillar of harmony. Abraxas holds the whip in the pillar of severity and the shield in the pillar of mercy. This was discovered by accident because I noticed the 2 circles in the Taijitu in the outline could be lined up with the spheres at the bottom of the tree. The tree is further divided into the 4 worlds: Asaya, Yetzirah, Bria, and Atzilut. I didn't know that, but I drew the boundaries right. In Egyptian iconography, the Ankh, or Key of Life, represents life itself. Egypt is actually where Abraxas comes from. With the cross, this crown of thorns forms an Ankh. This Ankh is also accidental. I was most surprised of all, though, when the temple showed up. Solomon's temple was divided into 3 sections: the portico, the porch outside, the main hall, or holy place, where the people could go, and then there was the Holy of Holies, which was where the Ark of the Covenant was kept. It was hidden behind a veil, which only the priests were allowed behind. On the portico, there were 2 freestanding pillars named Boaz and Jachin, representing the left and right hands of God. The 3 divisions, the meaning of the divisions, the pillars, and the hands, were all correctly placed according to this scheme. I had never seen or thought about the Temple of Solomon before. It came as a shock to me that the experience of creating this thing came with the sense that I was receiving external instructions. And then sure enough, I didn't have to look very far to find secret images that I didn't put there. I felt that something else did this, something far more intelligent than I was, and based on its affinity for sacred imagery, something I was willing to give the benefit of the doubt. On the last day of August, I took psychedelics again, hoping this thing would reveal itself and possibly communicate, like the things last time had. This time LSD. What happened that night was the most profound and terrifying experience I've ever had. Everything I've done since, I've done because of what I saw. I had a vision of a void outside of time and space. In it, a sphere of total light and a sphere of total darkness. Up from below, the black sphere was rising as the light descended, and each was moving towards the other. Something about this was completely overpowering. It felt like lightning was pouring into me through my eyes and filling my veins. There was nothing anyone could have said to make me look away from it. I felt like I was exploding and contracting at the same time, like a single force was pulling me apart and crushing me, and I was suspended in the middle of it, shaking. I could feel all of infinity screaming in my bones, and as the black sphere rose, the light shone brighter and brighter, and suddenly the sphere of light was shaking and howling, and bands of color rippled around it. I saw now that what I had thought was fire were not flames at all. It was entirely covered in glowing arms, and they were all beckoning and reaching and grasping at the black sphere of silence below. It shone brighter and brighter as it enveloped the darkness, and then the two spheres became one. One black pit shining with infinite blinding light, and in that light I could see the beginning and the end of time, the forming of all things and their undoing, all pouring out of a roaring, unknowable depth. A single, indescribable infinity expressed as shining darkness. I stared into that void, unable to look away, and I felt it staring back. The moment lasted forever, and as we looked at each other, I felt a need to laugh and cry and scream all at once. It seemed to be beauty and terror itself, and I knew then to a certainty that this was the thing that made the world. And this vision had been prefigured just days before in the cosmogram. For several hours I spoke with something that claimed to be an angel. It explained things I had not known and provided another vision. It showed me a solar eclipse in the sky. It looked like a hole, and out of that hole there poured water. This water was pitch black but shining at its edges like the eclipse itself. There was chaos in the world below, and the water engulfed everything. It flooded cities and towns and drowned the world. But in the midst of it there were people who the waters parted around and who were not touched by it. They brought people with them to high ground and fought off others who they left behind.
mga kararo.
The angel said
is met by sheer force. It's wild to see them doing this to someone like G2. Contextually is the important part in my mind.
G2's Fracture has actually looked quite one-dimensional, though. It's just that that one dimension is phenomenally effective against everybody else. They've only really showcased fast executes. And now G2 need to show us that next dimension, that next level. They need to be baiting fast execs to force the flood from EDG and actually calling the pause and collecting those kills. But they couldn't manage it basically once on Bind, because the same strat would have worked there.
Look at the info here. Not going to go far enough on the Teo drone for EDG to catch anyone towards spawn, but it does clear out towards A main, so feels like they want to free up nobody to hit that rotate early.
And crucially, the tempo difference from G2, right? It's stark. It's so different. Whereas you go and watch what they've done on Fracture in the past, it's fast, fast, fast.
My God, but Trent's already gone down, leaving Jorgamo on his own. This feels, again, it's going to feel a little lacking. They've seen no one else, and they're already looking for information down towards B main. They felt a little pressure, and they went, that's weird. There's no one following that up.
But Valen has called a really nice fake here. Because G2 have conditioned in their prior matches that they always go the first place that they make noise, now they've got a clear access to the A site. Unfortunately, it's a 3v5, because the two players faking on B have died.
I like what Jonah P's trying here, but it's really risky. He had to hit it the first time of asking, but Chichu already denies. It's down to 2. Leaf's position could be actually pretty spectacular, but it feels like it... Leaf? Oh no, he's got no idea. He's got no idea! It's not even the flank that gets him! It's Kang! EDG! Absolutely unstoppable thus far!
If you look at that from G2's perspective, Valen outplayed them in terms of making the right call coming out of the tag timeout. If Josh gave them that round, okay, we're going to make a little bit of a fake, a pump fake over towards B, and then we're going to reset on A. The problem was EDG just won every single duel at every point. They deleted Trent before a smoke went down, came back over here, caught onto everyone, found Leaf with the cam. It's perfection from EDG currently, even when G2 have a nice answer.
This is just lovely to witness. And G2 going to be forced down to heal pretty much. A broken purchase, not very many ults to bank on, but they could try and build up. Well, we saw EDG even willing in the previous rounds to take those riskier fights and still win them. Look, they're pushing out towards Arcade. There is no stopping this team. They are relentless in their approach in this map.
It's an unusual defensive setup. Only nobody playing for information.
Yeah, they got no idea. They pushed out so early through Arcade and they're still working. It feels like G2 are so surprised at this aggression time and time again.
I mean, that is a weird one though. EDG 4-stack over towards B and push out Arcade, flank underneath tunnel. That's the kind of strat you expect them to save for a rifle round. But it throws G2's rhythm off.
Now, G2 have one out at least on the site, right? We're talking silver linings. They've got a plant. Let's go, G2. Need a bit more than that, though, now. Kang already going to be really keeping track on Leaf here. Smoggy going to get contact. Chugamo wins. Those stingers in North Americans' hands are still deadly, but not deadly enough. Valen and Trent asked to do it all. Huge pressure. Valen tries to stand up. 13 HP. Looking a little unlucky as EDG maintain absolute dominance on that scoreboard. 6 now with 0 response.
Utterly in control. I mean, what we said towards the end of map 1 was, if this was a grand finals preview, man, what a match it would be. Ever since that, EDG have diffed G2.
Straight up.
All throughout Bind, we were ready to give G2 the bail. Because, fair enough, it's at the bottom of your map pool, okay. you left it open. Okay, but if you can't perform here on Fracture as well, where you've looked good regionally, and it's not at the tippity top of EDG's map pool either, at least we don't know, I suppose, with this brand new composition.
Sure.
But they are getting smacked around. This is champs winning form from EDG.
And it's crazy seeing that caliber of jump up between these two teams, because they are meant to be, as I said, this could be the quote-unquote grand final that a lot of people were theory crafting.
It's another fake being called from Valen. So Josh RT's tack timeout must have been, these guys are biting super heavy, used the condition in a previous to run a lot of fakes. Last time though, they lost 2 off the rip, and this time there's a heavy flank from north side.
Yeah, it's coming over quick as well. Already Kang going to be closing that gap pretty fast. On the outside, I think it's going to be Leaf who's the one to try and catch this maybe. He's got the flash behind him, but why do I feel this always just favors Kung at the moment? The rest of the team making it over now, the utility, the ults, everything poured on. Kung dealt with, Leaf now with a new lease of life, but nobody! Back-to-back impact! EDG starting to clear on through, and Leaf just wants to live! You don't get that chance! Nobody applying pressure! Valen punching back! It's still a 2v2. Jonah P, lovely little off angle here. It's Valen being dominant! G2 finally carve a round on the board.
He's the brains and the brawn for G2, calls a lovely fake, and then, fine, I'll do it myself, and gets 4 for them. But that's what they had to do to get 1 on the board. And the problem with running fakes like this as your win condition, oh, that is tragic.
Christ.
That's tragic for Jorgamo. He died with his showstopper out as well, I missed that. But the problem with running fakes as your win condition is they rely on the normal being the fast exec. And if the normal becomes the fake, then you're not going to bite anymore on the utility. You're not going to over-rotate.
I think that was 4 ults as well from G2.
Yeah, it's expensive.
And we've got Kung going for the operator, has his ult here. Valen, gonna have to be ready for this. Nice from Jorgamo, gonna take the space, and Jonah P's done well. Hold on. This is now still gonna be contested. Kung wants the space back on the site. He's gonna get it. Rips him away from tower. And that spike is quaking in its boots in the hands of Trent. He can't go any further now. This is uncomfortable, but does he get timing? Maybe. This pause, this lull in the round. But with the flank from someone like Nobody, you're not that worried about them walking back towards A.
Not at all. Both G2 players are going to have to find great timings and great duels.
That not going to happen with this man, is it? Leaf. Great first of, sort of performances here, but again, EDG looking like a step above the whole way.
Yeah. I did not think that we would see a team at this tournament make G2 look so rough. It's incredibly impressive. And this is still only the Swiss stage. Still plenty of opportunity for G2 to recover from this one and maybe go on still into playoffs, but I'd be amazed if they recover the map at this point. This is already such a hole that they have to dig themselves out of. EDG are showing brilliance.
Again, be it that little bit of vengeance to have from that one loss and EDG's championship run in the group stage to G2. People arguing, hey, but with Jorgamo here, that's a pound-for-pound upgrade over Icy. And well, EDG's form, to say the least, is skyrocketing. Nobody still willing to fight on this, and it's G2 in support to take away Leaf. And man, disadvantage so early on for G2.
This is going to be really tough to play. We want G2 to be moving forwards, looking to try to find a fight rather than just play passive post plants.
But where's safe? Where's secure? It feels like nothing is for you. EDG waiting behind these smokes, but the go signal's coming in now. Kung the first in and the first to fall. Good work, but better trade. Smoggy keeping the numbers up. G2 doing the same. EDG so clean. There's not much more to say. This is just a frag movie with their name on it.
G2, I think, player of the tournament so far.
100%.
He's, I suppose we are saying that just coming off a masterclass from Durka as well.
Yeah. Right
before this. So maybe I'm getting dazzled by the lights in front of me, but my God, he's at least got to be in the running because every round it feels like he's having spectacular impact. He can't be touched.
God.
Reaction times. Phenomenal. And just like on Pearl, Pansy, Josh RT's been forced to take the second tack timeout, round 10.
Feels kind of like a win at this point. I think we were calling that a little earlier with the scoreline, but at 8-1, you got to do something. I don't know how you're meant to contain someone like EDG. We're now seeing Chi-Chu kind of joining up with Kung in this. Nobody, consistent impact. I mean, every single person having their moment in the sun for EDG. It's not just that tactical approach that has been profound and incredibly hard to contain, but now we're getting the individuals like, okay, another 4K coming in, another 3K. How are you meant to deal with all of these problems?
I mean, the cope for G2 is we didn't win a pistol, and you know, Jorg and Trent are just having a bit of an off day. They're both sat at the bottom of the scoreboard at 1 and 9. Trent in particular has been an absolute monster so far this year. It's been his best year at the Tier 1 level since he first sprung onto the scene. And he has had a bit of an off day today. But at the same time, there's a reason why it's called cope. You know, even if they'd won a pistol here, do you really believe it would have stopped EDG from winning the rest of the rifle rounds? Like, this is not an ult snowball that you're witnessing right now.
Oh.
The ults are certainly helpful, but it's EDG dismantling G2's style here on Fracture. And some of that is going to be the tape difference, because Chinese kickoff finished a little earlier and EDG had time to refine stuff, change stuff, but it's also just the form they've got, the read they've got, the quality they've got.
G2 nearly walked into their deaths. Have a look at this. EDG having a wander, having a walk. And Kang getting much, much closer just around this corner. Valen waiting. Oh! It was like a guillotine brought down, but Valen gets to live to fight for another couple of seconds.
Trent reinforcing this south side position. It's very difficult to go and retake towards Tree. I mean, even if you throw a bunch of utility at Kang, he is going to disrespect it.
They're already walking north side as well. They don't stop. EDG just don't stop.
This actually might be a good thing, though, for Leaf. He hasn't been able to find much value from Dish anyway. So being able to be given fights as long as he thinks about a flank could offer him impact. He's not thinking about it, though, is he? Oh, he is!
Oh, he's
Caught.
Yeah, done for. The map now looking near on impossible to approach EDG here in numbers. The gap closing again. And G2 being strangled out of this one. Smothered as they try and work forward. Jonah P and Valen just inundated with util. Look at it. It's everywhere. There's nothing to do but die. EDG sending a message round by round. It's 9-1.
A lot of these rounds feel similar to Bind, where G2 on the attack side was sending it down short and then not finding that pause in the tempo to bait out the flash. You know, what you want to see from them is we go forwards, we bait out the defensive reaction, and then we punish it. And here, it's similar stuff. They're going forwards, there's a defensive reaction, but then they just get smothered by it. They get absolutely overwhelmed every time without being able to read what's happening. And EDG, they're just too strong.
Yeah. It is mad to see an outclass at this caliber, to this extent.
Yeah.
And again, G2 can do nothing but try and keep going, right? It's, you know, keep trying to find a new way forward, keep trying to find an area to work in, but the fluidity that EDG are playing with right now is so hard to pin down.
You got to be scared of Kang's operator. And then Kang is holding lines for the rest of the team to push. And also, when EDG are up 91, they're going to be so confident. Yep. So even if you throw a piece of util at them, or they have a smoke in their face, they're not going to respect it anyway. So it gets tougher and tougher to play against opponents when they get the confidence like this.
Not ready yet.
They have found the weaker side of the map here, but it's Kang taking a walk with his op on the north side that worries me, because this is what I'm talking about in terms of confidence. Would you be doing this if it was an even game? Probably not.
I want to say no.
Well, at the same time, it's Kang. Who knows?
Oh, God, of course. He catches Valen. A reward for that sort of behavior. Now they're going to be just scratching their head going, Christ, what are we meant to do now? Denied on the plant. Paranoid about tower, have to clear it. Stalled out, rotations are in, stuns coming through, they're waiting, they're pausing, they're hoping, they're praying, and maybe this time there's an answer. Leaf desperate to get there in time, Giacomo surrounded and on an island, he's dealt with. 13 seconds, the spike is so far, Leaf has to find the kills. He gets Smoggy, the flash will show, he knows, 6 seconds, he's got to make his choice here. He's trying to find him, 2 seconds. 1, he's run out of time, nobody puts him to bed, it's 10-1.
There is no kind of win condition that is finding success against EDG. The wall has been raised. EDG are finding so many opportunities, it doesn't matter what they do, it's working.
God, that scares me for the rest of the tournament as well, the confidence that this team will be working forward with. They've done this to G2, arguably the team that people thought would, again, finalists potentially, high end, and to already see this sort of scoreline, that's confidence that could last a tournament. Kang already. Leaf, you've been liking a bit of Dish? Nah. Ooh, body block. He's still going to get the kill. They're still willing to brawl. It's a 3v2. It's still a man advantage on EDG's side.
At this point, G2 are playing not to get embarrassed, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, the win just can't even be in their mind. The 10-2 half is the best that they could hope for if Trent and Valen are able to put anything together.
Okay, I mean, Trent's one off from ult. A bit of util left. Same for Valen, not ult-wise, but util-wise at the very least.
And the pause in the round here is to try to catch a potential flank that comes through. And EDG have been active, they have been flanking. But every time G2 pause and wait, it's not happening. You know, they're just sometimes making the right call in the wrong round.
G2 just chilling in, Cam.
This Cam has been getting so much value. It caught Leaf in a variety round as well.
Oh, that's a dirty little trip. Does get handled, then the cross does get spammed. You see Trent went low for that, but the plant's in. Quick stun. And looking like a quick retake as well. Simon on the drive-by, just going to catch Trent, leaving Valen in a world of trouble. In a 1v3, he's going to try and do what he can. We need heroics from G2 to even give them breathing room, and a desperate attempt here for Valen. Smoggy and Simon clean so far, playing by Hiller. Nice from Valen, but not nice enough. A near-on flawless first half.
Utter domination from EDG. G2 were the only team to take them down at champs, but that is so far away from what we're witnessing today. EDG came here to get revenge.
An 11-1, you said it. I mean, vengeance is being served here. The last time these two met, it was the only real time we saw EDG looking human back when they eventually went on to win it all anyway. Now we're sat at 11-1, and G2 better get a pistol.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that'll save them. This is going to look more like a coronation for EDG as they head forwards into playoffs. The chance of an upset, the chance of any kind of comeback is just almost impossibly small. At this point, with EDG dismantling G2, I think you've got to start talking very seriously about them being the second team ever to go back-to-back, the only team ever to win a Masters and Champs. You know, it's only Sassy as a player who's ever even been able to do that. This team is now poised, of all of them, including Vitality, who we saw go through the playoffs earlier today, as the team to watch.
Hands down. Hands down. Well, G2, how about a pistol? Let's have a look.
It would almost be crueler if they did win the pistol here.
A glimpse of what you could have had.
They've lost 5 out of 5.
It's not great, is it?
No, I think that's 0%.
Good at statistics.
But I'm not a maths guy.
No. It's not looking great though, but EDG getting closer and oh, Kong straight in. Oh, Chichu! It'll light him up, EDG. Give him hell. Jonah P and Leaf, mile away. Good
Wrap
luck,
it
boys. Yeah.
Stick a fork in him. There is no hope out here. EDG, no mercy. And nobody, by the way, has just decided to have a game to end things on.
Oh, this is a one-sided affair through and through. 12-1. Yeah, putting on an absolute clinic. Can close it out in this coming round.
You couldn't have found a more uneven open and close to the series. 18-16 deep in OT, no opportunity for one team to get a toe above the other. And now this could just straight up be a 13-1.
Oh, it might be. But Stingers and G2, here we are.
Don't try to sell me anything here. Not a shred of hope. I want to hear nothing other than EDG glazing.
Told you. It's crazy you hate G2 like this.
I know. I know.
Gonna need 4 more of those though. And this hasn't just been the Kung Kung show, right? Chi-Chu's been an absolute monster. Nobody. I mean, you can list the whole roster.
He's 16-5. He was 15-5 in the first half. Nobody actually not having like an unbelievable match, but in this map, he went bonkers just as part of the entire team destroying G2.
Okay.
They have a potential to collapse on them here in sand. Oh. Leaf would have been gifted a freebie.
Oh, they're going for it. Having a little swing on this one. Trent with utility, gonna do well. It's a 3v2. This is the advantage they haven't had in a minute. Just give Chi-Chu Stingers. Oh, Chi-Chu, are you gonna do this on your own? A 1v2, no spike. Got Jonah P looking like he's nervous as hell up towards heaven, and I would be as well. There's no way he's gonna find a fair fight. Oh my God, Chi-Chu, it's all on your shoulders. Close it out, he can't. Trent extends play for another round.
To what end? To what end? You struggle against the relentless void. The cosmic abyss calls towards you. There is a black hole in front of you. The heat death of the universe inexorably approaches, and yet you resist. For what, Trent? For what? I know that they're pro players and you have to take everything one round at a time, but this is not lock-in. This is the Swiss stage of Masters Bangkok, and I've seen it written. It's the G2 comeback is not happening.
Oh my God, Kung, stop it! He got a headshot as well. I'm terrified of this team. They have nothing and they're making it look so much more deadly than it should.
It's the confidence and the individual ability. It seeps through everything they do, every round they play. I've never seen them play scared, actually. I think that's a really important point for EDG. I don't know what it would even take for them to get to that point. I think they've just got the personality, especially coming out from Kung, to just never be in a spot like that.
Again, with the Kung thing, it feels almost infectious, right? He brings up the rest of the team as well. Very much the rallying cry when needed, but again, another extension. The void is avoided for another round. Thankfully for us to get to witness more.
It does give us an opportunity to show what EDG are going to be cooking on their attack side with this composition.
That's true.
You know, normally, I felt like that previous comp where they would run the fade had a lot of natural synergies to be able to, you know, throw a prowler, allow Kung to slide in off the back of it too. The breach is great for sending Kung up. The Teho, not as natural. Not that it stopped them at all on the defense side. Kung was still sending it in perfect synergy with his 2 initiators. Oh, that's so awkward. Oh, you know the feeling, don't you? You cross someone in the corridor and you can't get out of the way.
On your left. Oh.
No, after you, after you.
Yeah, the Brits struggle in those scenarios. Okay, EDG dragging G2 around this map left and right, but Jonah P
alone.
Oof.
Cage trigger.
Decides not to commit to it. If he had more people with him there, Chishu could have been a target. You see how quickly and confidently he backfills the space.
And Chi-Chu wins it too. You can see why he's confident. Support comes in. You're never alone with this team. And they're on the site. Simon doing well. Jorgamo with his 2, but it's down to Trent and Valen to try and keep this heartbeat still going. As EDG now with time on their side. Sit back in this post plant. You're right, confidence is still very much there. Doubled up towards Sand. Looking like they want to try and get a fight on this. Chi-Chu's fallen, and G2 again, another step.
That's one of those moments actually where the overconfidence ends up punishing them. There's a 2v2 where they've got great post-plant control. They know that G2 are going to be swinging our rafters, and they just decide to go for the wide swing double peek. I get punished for it. G2 are already posted on the angles. The problem is I have so much difficulty believing that they're not going to tighten that up at some point.
Yeah.
And even in this round, it's such a beautiful fault line that comes through there. As Simon is throwing a cross-map fault line to be able to set up his lurker for a kill on the opposite side of the map. Simon's util.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Golf claps all around.
I mean, that's sarcastic tone of voice as well from Trent. It's, you know, he's not genuinely believing in the comeback yet.
Don't ruin my illusion. Let me think they're loving it. They believe. Round by round. This could be where it all goes to pieces as well. Sheriff, Stingers, and oh my, George.
What the hell is going on?
You don't get to see Jorg making mistakes often, but that was certainly one, making an absolute meal of it. Trent, Valen, and Leaf now at a numbers disadvantage. Plants in, Simon gonna get away as well. Okay, but clearing sight. You get to step forward, clearing dish. They kind of know, or should know, these post-plant positions and can hazard a guess at it, but they still have to dig him out.
Oh, they do just clear it before Leaf gets his toes caught.
Okay, nice bit of stall. Starting to get a bit nervous now, especially with Chi-Chu's reposition. Does get seen, but they're still making a go of it. Down to just Trent now. Is this how you go down with a whimper? It might just be EDG living up to their legacy with a monstrous 13-4, decimating G2.
They just took every other team at Masters Bangkok and put them on notice. This is the team to watch. What on earth was that moment towards the end there? Chaos. But a slightly anticlimactic end should not take anything away from the brilliance that was Map 2 and Map 3 from EDG. And the fact, if you scroll all the way back just to think about Map 1, that's the top of G2's map pool. That's EDG playing a composition that they've only practiced for the last couple of weeks, and they still push G2 deep into overtime.
This team is on to truly become legends at this point. If they keep this up, again, the context of doing this to G2 is the statement. Any other team will be on notice. This map pool, terrifying. The players on fire. There isn't a weak point to this team.
And also, you've got to remember the Chinese teams have that tape difference. So there's much less VOD review that you can do of them. They're starting to put out more as they go through Masters Bangkok. But for example, this was the first time that they played this new composition on Fracture. So you'll be studying this as you go forwards. If you end up, unfortunately, facing these juggernauts in the playoffs. But for every other squad, they didn't really have an opportunity to change too much coming out of kickoff. And I think you can tell in a map like this, EDG were just so ready for the fast tempo of G2 and were so happy to brawl them out.
Yeah.
The prep was immaculate and the form was brilliant too today.
It really was, and it is a treat to see this level of upswing on any sort of team. And seeing the high notes, again, map 1, a beautiful display of an even sort of high-end, you know, really high-octane game, but the beauty of this level coming out from Kangkang as well, seeing him be able to adapt, seeing that Yoru looking good, seeing the Neon still look viable, and again, I guess I don't want to say supporting acts, but the team around him looking fantastic. Chi-Chu having an absolute lifer of a series.
Yeah, he looks utterly phenomenal, and the idea of saying a life game would indicate that he doesn't do it often, and he does.
Yeah, it's fair.
He's not just gone through Nats, his idol, but now he's gone through Leaf and diffed Leaf. When people were looking at Leaf as being the best Sentinel in the world, basically, coming into this tournament, Chi-Chu is on fire.
It's just an absolute treat to watch this game. EDG, in a class of their own, I think that's the fair assessment from taking away from this in G2. Back to the drawing board a little bit.